Order. First thing, please put your cell phones on silent or vibrate. And then let's all stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amanda, would you take the roll, please?
Councilmember Dalby.
Here.
Councilmember Rowe.
Here.
Councilmember Stevens.
Here.
Councilmember Strebe. Councilmember Berg. Here. Mayor Lazio.
Here. I needed a motion for approval of tonight's agenda. Somebody, please.
So move.
Thank you, Skip. And Mark.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Councilmember Berg. Yes.
Okay. We always give citizens a chance to comment on anything on the agenda, or we'll give a comment period at the end of the meeting for anything not on the agenda. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to address the council? Seeing none, we'll move into tonight's agenda then. I'd like to thank our city administrator, Andy Morris, for inviting Mitch Gowdy from Hill Productions to come tonight and give us an overview of web design and operations. So, Andy, is there any comments you want to make?
Very good. Thank you, Mayor. And again, we appreciate Mitch being here. One of the items I want to put in perspective for obviously the city council, but perhaps even members of the audience as well, is just somewhat of an outline of the process. The city did not do RFPs on this project. And one of the reasons was pretty confident we were going to receive a large number of proposals, and we have received a pretty healthy number. To date, we've had inquiries from about five different entities. This was a project that was being worked on before I came back here. In fact, Tom Rogers, our former public information officer, was working on this with Joe Helfenberger, I think as early as 2014. The website's a little dated and it needs to be not only updated, but also made a little bit more accessible. That's certainly something that members of the city council and people in the community have shared with me, and hopefully we will be able to do that this evening. I want to acknowledge as well Edward Wilson, our IT person, has been a tremendous help in not only putting the right people in place, the folks that we need to visit with on the proposals, but also getting a sense of some of the items we're looking for ultimately in a proposal. There is money that is set aside that is budgeted for this. Obviously, I want council to have as much input as possible before a particular firm is selected. Would also like to put it in front of staff to the extent that I can, so they can offer some feedback as to what they like and may not like. So let me just put this in perspective, and then I'll put it back over the mayor. Again, Mitch, we appreciate you taking time out of your schedule, being with us here this evening. Mitch is going to give a presentation to us this evening. You should have an attachment which was put, pardon me, in your box, which quite frankly is the overview of the presentation this evening. On the 23rd, there will be two more presentations. The very first one will be with Civic Plus. James Riley from Civic Plus will be here. And he's actually a person that the city has worked with fairly closely in trying to develop a website. He will be here. In addition to that, we will also have his last name, McMillan, Brian McMillan. He will be here from Neapolitan Labs, and he will present after James gives his presentation. One of the items I pointed out to both of them, just to put this in perspective, we will not be having dueling presentations. So that night, if one person says something, the other one says, I have greater security protocols, this is not going to be an up and the down, jack in the box. They can share with me their thoughts as to why their site may be better. Ultimately, a recommendation will come from staff, but ultimately it's a legislative decision, and that is something that council will work on. Finally, I would like to move on this if possible in the February timeframe, but that's entirely up to council. If council does not like what they see so far, they want additional input, that will happen. That's how the legislative process works, but that at least gets us out the door. So Mayor, with that, I'll turn it back over to you and introduce Mr. Gowdy.
Thank you. Good evening, Mitch. We're glad to have you here. So step up to the microphone and give us an overview. Council does have your slide packet in their box. So.
Great. Thank you guys for taking the time. Presented This proposal, I believe actually 2 years ago was when I first initially reached out, and I've been working with a lot of companies in Ottumwa along with different organizations, and we have been able to kind of give a facelift to a lot of the design of and the look of the town. And as we know, a lot of things are moving digital, so presenting yourself in the best way is very important. And then when I heard that you guys were definitely considering moving forward, I reached out again, and I was able to have quite a few meetings and understand what y'all are going for. But I also know this could be somewhat new to a few of you, so I'm going to kind of start from square one. And then I also have a prototype that we have put together for you. We typically don't do prototypes, but it was a request, and I figured for a town that we frankly are always in, it would make perfect sense to just go ahead and do that so that you guys can see how it functions and actually look at what a new site looks like rather than just a bunch of numbers and firms saying they can do it the best they can. First, I want to introduce myself though. My name is Mitch Gowdy. I reside in Bloomfield, Iowa, and do most of my shopping in Ottumwa, as you know, of Bloomfield people. And I graduated from Fairfield High School, so I'm from this area. I know this area pretty well, and I know Ottumwa's been doing a lot of things to move up. And I acknowledge those. I actually had an employee come back. We now have 12 employees in Bloomfield. And I had an employee come back who was very familiar with Ottumwa, and they looked at some of the new sites and some of the new things that are going on, some of the PR that was going on, and they said, really? All that's going on. And so I was excited to hear that. And then I also explained, I showed him the new prototype. He thought that was very cool. So hopefully you guys will feel the same about it. As for my company, we did do a shift in the past few years into integrated marketing. We work with everything from private businesses to government, and we have had successful projects all across the board, as we'll show. And we'll dive in. My goal is to make this not too long and too boring for you, so I'll just try to get right to the point. Here we go. So our slogan at Hill Productions and Media Group is better. The reason we kind of went with that is we like things to be better. We strive for a level of excellence. We do everything from e-commerce sites to multi-page sites. And when it comes to web design, what you guys are going to be needing is something that's very accessible to the community so that they can find the correct information, but also to prospective people who are looking to move to town, to find things, to find the right departments, to get the information that they need. Along with that, prospective businesses, when they go and they look, do they feel like it's a vibrant town? They get that first look. If they're looking from especially a long way, they don't necessarily know that much about Ottumwa, and hopefully we can highlight some of the great things that the community is doing and show that the city is moving forward and a very welcome place for businesses to come to town. What we really strive to do at Hill Productions is service after the sale. Everybody who does a website, it is somewhat of a creative process, which means there's always tension, there's always people wanting this and some people wanting that, and we try to navigate our way the best that we can to come to a good conclusion of what that is, but also things change through time. One thing that makes us very different in our proposal, probably somewhat different, granted I'm going first, so who knows what other firms will present based upon it, but we offer 6 months of free maintenance after the sale. What that means is that the day you launch it, it doesn't mean you start getting charged immediately for any changes that you want done. I just find that a little unethical. I told you I would build you a website and that it would work for you, and now all of a sudden a citizen calls in and says, hey, I can't access this, and now you have a $300 bill that you weren't expecting. We don't work that way. We have 6 months of free maintenance. That also gives you guys a little bit more leisure on when you do launch it, because you know it's not concrete. It's not has to be in concrete today. This is the website or else we're going to get charged. You can put something up that's probably 90% there and let people start clicking around and see what they like and what they don't like. We can get your feedback over the next 6 months and make those changes for free. Our process that we go through is we start with the mission and the vision. We have had a few preliminary talks, but I know there will probably be more people included in the process. We then create a strategy, we execute on that, and then we deliver real results based upon what you want. We've done our sales consultations. We go into a content and design outline. We actually have moved that up just a little bit and already done a prototype. So we have somewhat of a framework to work within, which helps a lot of people, especially if you're not familiar with web design. You can start somewhere and go from there. There actually is quite a bit of work in that content and design phase because there's a lot of opinions and also a lot of content that we have to put together. And then we do multiple detailed rounds of revision to the launch. One question I get a lot is, will our site go down in the process? No, it does not. We put it on a subdomain, so your current site will be up and live up until the date we launch. During that day, usually it only takes about an hour to 2 hours where things might be a little bit funky. We say, just for safety, that it could be 24 hours, but I can't even recall a time that it's taken that long for the new website to populate and the old one to go down. So you will be up and running, and there should be very, very little downtime on that. One thing I do want to highlight, I do know that I'm competing with a few other firms, is our commitment to this community and a lot of the work that we've done already in this community. We are a firm that has spent money in this community, that are chamber members, that we have sponsored events in the town for different entities. And we do just want that to be somewhat highlighted in your decision-making process. Obviously, it comes down to making the best website, but that might be another thing in your mind, is that we employ local people, and those people spend in your community, and I think it could be a great thing for everyone if you see our work being the best. So the purpose of a website, I don't know where everyone's at on the website process, but I probably have a rather cynical view of websites, even though I'm in the industry. A website needs to simply function. It needs to look good, and it needs to not have a lot of maintenance. If it accomplishes those things, especially for a city, that's what you want. Regarding the bells and whistles and everything that it can possibly do, you call us and we can get that accomplished for you. But for the most part, we're wanting to do a little bit of a facelift, and you're wanting the process to be easy, and you want a firm that you can go knock on their door and they will get done what you want done. So that is the purpose of a website. Now, to build up the positive side of it too, and kind of the pie in the sky of the purpose of a website, is it really is sometimes for a lot of prospective buyers, prospective citizens, their first touch of what the community is about. So if we can make that a positive experience for them, all the better. So I wanted to highlight where we're at right now with your guys' website. I took a screenshot as of Sunday. I don't know if anything has changed, but this is kind of where we're at. And when I started the talks, I think it was pretty agreed that it looks somewhat dull. And that's not to hit on the any other firms or anybody else. That's just simply kind of where we're at today, and I think we can move it along. Web design does change throughout the times. So hopefully with this, you can see with a dark look, it just doesn't necessarily look inviting, and I'm not sure what the trees are really highlighting for the town. And I think we could do a lot better job of highlighting information that you have probably different people going to the site for different reasons. If we can recognize those, highlight those, so you stop getting calls and a ton of questions about it, hopefully we can get that accomplished. Also, if you look, you have a lot of cached posts that don't look very warm and inviting to click on. Although if someone's just simply looking for information, they can probably find it. So we're not in a dire straits sort of situation, but I think we can really improve upon that. So to get into the mock-up, I have a live version of this in case the internet was gonna mess with me. I took screenshots of it, but if you give me 1 second, I'm gonna go over to my screen and I'm just gonna do a quick walkthrough off the microphone so you can kind of see we've developed 2 pages and a front page. This by no means is 100% concrete. Frankly, it could 100% be scratched, but it's a good starting spot for us. So if we look here, this is what the home page could look like. It will be optimized for both phones and tablets and computer screens. And what we can do here is we can click, and you can see how the menu is very easy to read for anybody who is going to the site and find that information. There's also an obvious search button so that they can find what they want. And then we did build out one page and there, and you can see how the site would function quite a bit different than the way it does right now. There's also social icons. As we know, social media is growing like crazy. So if we can highlight some of the actual official pages of the city so that we can direct them to that rather than going to potentially other sites, that's what we want to do. Was there anything else on this prototype that you wanted me to highlight based upon, that's kind of the quick rundown. Was there anything you wanted me to show on that? Okay. All right, you're gonna see the screenshots. And now I wanna go into our previous work real quick, our portfolio. Some of the clients who we've worked with, a lot of them are local, a lot of them you'll know their names. Some of the notable ones is the Iowa Economic Development Authority. Along with that, Main Street. We've worked with many Main Streets. Along with that, we've done the schools. We've worked with them on rebranding. Going further, we have helped with rebranding of communities such as Bloomfield, Iowa. They actually had a grant to do a whole rebranding, but then the firm gave them, I believe, I don't know, 60+ page report, and we kind of made heads or tails of it so that the employees could just put it to use. Along with that, we created specific icons for different divisions. Along with, you can also see the wayfinding that we did with Woodbine. Another site you can look at if you want to look at it later is the Ottumwa Recycling, work with Janice, and it was, the purpose of it was the exact same thing, which is getting the correct information to the people when they go to it. And they could also sign up. We created a web app that they could sign up and get notified when their pickup day was. So it minimized a lot of the unneeded calls, which just wastes the people's time. And then that also makes people happy because they can just figure it out for themselves. Now, to note on this project, this is kind of my selling proposition where I wanted to dig in, which is you will see our name is not necessarily only doing municipal websites, things like that. Similar situation, I was talking to Ottumwa Recycling, and I looked at some of the web fees that were going to be presented, and although initially it was okay, it was actually higher than our quote, the recurring fees were extremely high for something that was very simple, and I thought, well, why for something so simple is it very expensive? So we just looked at the basic technology that was needed for someone to enter in a question, and then it give you an official answer of if they want to get rid of a certain type of material, how the Ottumwa Recycling will handle that. And that web app was, I believe, around $20,000 to buy, and the entire site here ended up being under $10,000 with our firm. Everything works beautifully. There's really no difference. It was just using simple tools and obvious different technologies to create a web app that can give you a question and answer. And I guess the big difference between that was just simply we didn't call ourselves the recycling websites of the world. We were just a local firm that can get the job done for you. So that's really the pitch that I'm going after. Some more work we've done specifically for Ottumwa. We helped out with the brand deployment of the new designs of the Ottumwa branding. Along with that, the schools, which isn't necessarily this, but we did help them with the rebranding of that school and getting that mascot actually trademarked so that we can keep a consistent look. And if you look at a lot of the companies, if you're not a designer, there's a reason why you buy some nice things. It looks and feels a certain way. And we really wanted to grasp that for them. And there were some quotes out there, some bids for $50,000 for branding. That's not unreasonable. And we were able to go in and just get done what was needed to be done without a ton of bells and whistles for the cost that it needed to be done at. So that was some of our work there. There's a little bit more preview you can look into if you're looking for other websites that we've done. Feel free to check those out. I want to dive into the costs that we sent over. Initially, I quoted around, I believe, $15,000. But then after having conversations, I realized that that was a little out of the ballpark and out of the scope of what you really needed. You need a good functioning site that works on different devices, and you need it to just simply function and look good. That doesn't need to be extremely, extremely expensive. I know that that price might scare some people based upon some of other competitors in the space who charge upwards of $20,000 for the exact same thing. If you just look at the body of work, you can see there really is no difference besides the infrastructure that we build it in, which is in rural Iowa, which keeps our costs down quite a bit. Some other questions that you might want to consider is the free website maintenance. That's a $294 add-on that's included with that. And then the website hosting and domain, there is no markup and it's yours. So when you buy a website from Hill Productions and Media Group, we do not own it. You can, if you are sick of me at the end of the process, I hope that's not the case, but if you are tired of me, you can take it to any competent developer. We use a common language. Basically, we build it a very simple way so that anybody can pick up where we left behind. Now that keeps us honest because we want to earn your continuous business for years to come, but that also gives you guys the freedom to know you own the website outright. Along with that, we don't bill anything more than what the companies charge us that we do hosting and domain with. We can localize that hosting and domain, and we can present those options to you to give you a quick idea of what that's going to cost. You're going to be looking between $15 and $25 a year for domain, and then you're going to be looking between $15 and $25 a month for hosting. If you have questions about that, feel free to ask me. But basically, the lingo is if you want your website up and running, and when they type in your website, it to pop up, those are fees that you just simply can't get around. The other thing to look at is the recurring charges, which will be a big part of this. Everything is optional. We build great functioning websites that you frankly do not need to buy anything additional. Now with that, a lot of people decide to keep us in the loop and also to buy a maintenance package after the 6 months expire. If you want to be able to send over edits, maybe for just time for your employees, you don't want them to deal with it and you just want the web developer to go in there and fix it real quick, or on the off chance that something bad were to happen to your website. As we know, hackings happen, people do malicious things, and hopefully we can prevent a lot of that with our security, which is very good. But along with that, we can do the edits, changes, and simple fixes for $49 a month. If you want, 100% optional. Then if you want website assurance, which is we will back up your site, we run anti-spam, anti-hacking, and we guarantee a break fix. So if your website were to be compromised, which does happen, the amount it happens for the level of website that you guys are building, I wouldn't be in a lot of stress about that, but it can happen. What you do is you pay $99 a month, and we guarantee that if it were to be compromised, that at no cost to you, we do all the fixes and get you back up your website. If your domain's compromised, we deal with all that, and it doesn't matter how many hours it takes us to fix it, we do that. Along with that, we run backups, so typically our response time is we can have something back up within 24 hours. We say 5 days. If it were to be a very, very bad hacking that would probably affect more than just your website, but a ton of websites throughout the United States, that might be a different situation, but you have that assurance there for $99 a month. All put together, if you were to keep that, you're talking about $148 a month if my math is anywhere decent. So that's optional, but it's also a good thing to consider if you want to keep it. As far as the timeline goes, typically it takes about 3 to 4 months. Now this has an asterisk because it is based upon client response time. Oftentimes it does have to go through a lot of different people because we are pleasing a lot of people with this website. So it could be a little longer, but that is based upon a response time of about 2 days back to us when we send you an email getting some response back saying we want something different in that time. Your steps to do it, you can read through that, but we included 20 rounds of revision, which is more than enough to get this project done, but it's there in case you want it. And that's before the launch. And then after the launch, you have up to 5 changes monthly. And we really don't sit there with a tally every single time you call. It's just kind of a gauge of, okay, what can we expect from the maintenance? If you call me and you want the whole thing overhauled 2 months into it, that might be a conversation for another day. But simple changes, we're not going to say changing one word and then changing one picture. That's 2 edits. It's just kind of a gauge of, we'll go into the site 5 times a month to make edits for you. Rush, I don't know if that's of concern to you, but that is on there. If you do want it, 100% guaranteed 45 days based upon client response time of 1 day. We can do that for an extra $2,500 if it's something you want up right away. So to talk about the options that you can have with this website, it is up to you. I know there are a lot of bells and whistles that can come with websites, such as chats, such as bill paying online, all those things. We can get all that accomplished for you. Based upon our initial conversations that we've had, it sounds like that might cause more infrastructure changes than what you want to just give a facelift to the site. But these are your options. We can do more than that. If you contact us and you have a brilliant idea, we can get you a quote on that, or most of the time it will be covered. But some quick things would be like community calendars, a document center to get official documents, community quick links to other sites within Ottumwa, spotlighting events, staff directory, easy blog posting for bids, payments are optional. Online forms, if you wanted to streamline something, I know I can work with you on a lot of those things if you want to implement those over the years. Starter SEO, one thing that's pretty important would be easy updates with no HTML required. You don't have to be a computer nerd like myself to make an edit with the site. With the site, you get what we call a cookbook. The cookbook is just kind of an analogy of, you're not going to be able to cook a 5-course meal, but you can do some very simple things by following the recipe. Exact same thing for web design. Anybody can go in, and most people who can get around a computer can click on homepage, click on the next thing to upload this picture. If I want to post a blog, you just go to the blog page in the table of contents, and it's made specifically for your site. That is a differentiator right there. I don't know how many people read those big user manuals you get that are a blanket for every prototype of every website possible. It is your website, and you can see screenshots actually of your website. You get your website analytics, and then you have abilities to add features later, at a later date, if after the 6 months you wanted it, or if you were on a maintenance package and you wanted to include it at a later date. Alrighty, headed into why us. We are very competitive on our pricing model. We do know we are not the cheapest around. I know you can build a website, frankly, for free if you really wanted to sit and mess around with it forever. That being said, if you want a professional firm that has results behind it and an entire staff to get it done on a good timeline, we're a great option for that, and we don't charge out of the question because we have a big office in a big city that you have to pay the rent for. We're in pretty rural Iowa here, so we have pretty low costs, so that keeps us very competitive. We have minimal recurring fees. That's a big one that you'll want to look at. We are a local business, and we have an amazing team and support. This is a big one. We have a 2-hour response window for a response time. That response might be, hey, we got your message, I'm currently in a meeting, or the lady at the front desk sends you a message and says, Mitch is currently presenting to a board right now, but he'll get back to you. During business days, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., we will be on that. So if you email in, you have a 2-hour response window for us to get back to you. Also, we have a number you can call, and frankly, if it really gets bad, maybe you can come down and knock on our door, and we'll know it's serious then. So the track record of success, you can see based upon all the work that we've done and growing a business. We can't do it by going and having a bunch of people sign contracts with us and end up ticked off. Even those customers who might have been in a not great situation, we always try to make it good with them for the most part. We have 5-star reviews online, and you can go online and check that out. I did add one testimonial to this, which is Sarah Giroux from Hotel Ottumwa, that she does have a website through us, and she did a video online that we did her website and kind of the process that she talked about. And she said we gave her timelines, which helped her out quite a bit. And we really took time to listen to what she wanted, so we got it done right the first time. You can see some other testimonials right there. You can see some of the industries that we've worked with. And then my last final pitch for you is why do you choose us? If you want to get results on time, on budget, with an expert team with impeccable service that's up to date and ahead of the competition, a website will typically last you around 5 to 7 years based upon if it's built correctly and it's with good design trends. That investment will last you a while. You will choose Hill Productions Media Group because we strive to be better. So if you give us an opportunity, you'll see that. So I'm open for questions now.
Okay, this is a special meeting, so let's be very informal and just give each other a chance to ask questions if you have repeated questions. So if there are any questions, somebody wants to start, go ahead.
You had mentioned in the slide about the revisions. If we do, like, for example, news stories or press releases, things like that, is that something that we have the ability to do, or is that something that we have to go through you to do?
You can do it either way. With every website, especially one like this where there will be multiple people probably in the website, we set permissions so that somebody who is only supposed to be posting news stories can only do that within the website and can't change the front page to something wacky. If you want, during the 6 months of free maintenance, you might as well send it over to us. We can get it done for you. But you also have that cookbook where you have access into the website, and you can very easily navigate to that page. And it's as simple as either uploading the story if it's a PDF and pressing post, and you'll see that revision right away.
Okay. But if we wanted something like new subdirectories or something like that, that's something more than likely we would come through you to do.
Correct. So if you're looking to do a major overhaul of a page, such as what you mentioned, that might be something where you reach out to us and say, hey, we want to make this change. We may just get back to you and say, hey, that's within web maintenance. If this is the only thing you send us this month, if it does need to be quoted, our hourly cost for existing clients is $65 an hour. If you do just want to go down that route, but you should rarely be running into that, because hopefully we'll get a lot of that covered when we do the robust content outline and really think through the entire website, so you don't run into that too much.
Okay. And I guess the last question that I have, you had one of the bullet points you had up there was the e-commerce. Mm-hmm. Is that something, what company do you use, like a third party for that, or is that something that's handled through the bank the city possesses, or how does that work?
So if you were looking for a payments option, we would definitely use a third-party vendor. There are a lot of reputable companies that are good price, and we would present those options to you. A lot of people, there are standards also that you can use that are very secure if you were looking to go down that avenue. As far as how the website functions, we will probably build it in a CMS such as WordPress, which is very easy to link up other technologies with. Obviously, you want to use a firm like ours who knows what we're doing, so we can make sure that that link is secure. But if you wanted to add, let's say, a Shopify, or if you wanted to add WooCommerce and sell something actually to people through your website, that is possible. If you're looking for a payments portal, that is something where you would look for an actual software that would run that. A lot of towns use actually a third vendor that just pops out to a new page, and that handles everything. But that would probably actually integrate with whatever payment software you would choose as a city, and it would probably all work together. So at that point, it would just be a matter of calling us and saying, hey, how do we integrate this into our current website? And we would give you a few options how we recommend you do it best. A lot of people host it on their own payment companies hosted on their own secure servers, so that's just taken care of. So we just simply provide a link that looks good. An example of that in a different industry would be the Hotel Ottumwa. If you get a chance to look at clicking on booking a reservation, it actually goes to the reservation software, but we made it look as though you stay within the site so people don't get thrown off by that. But it makes no sense. My argument, if that becomes an issue for if payment's a big part of this, is don't recreate the wheel. We don't need to create a whole software just for Ottumwa. And also we don't need to pay into a big system when it's simply people, making whatever payment that they need. It's a very simple transaction, and you do link that up with the bank, but that could be a longer conversation. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Awesome.
Any other questions? Holly?
So I know you just mentioned WordPress. Is that what you primarily use, or do you decide what platform you're using based on what you're building?
So we can use different ones. We do primarily stick to WordPress. That's pretty standard for most of our websites. We do have the capability to do other ones based upon what you're looking to do. The mock-up that we designed would work really well in WordPress, but if you wanted it in something different, we could consider that for sure.
And then the only other question I had, well, I guess I have two. It's twofold.
Okay.
So I know you talked about the add-ons. Do you have any concerns on any of those? Like if we want to, after the fact, add something on, if that would have an issue in the functionality of the website? Is it something where we really need to think on the front end what we want to add on versus on the back end?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and that is something during the content outline that a few of those things, such as a chat service, if you did want to deploy a chat, that is something you do want to consider ahead of time. Now, granted, if you do come to us in 6 months and you want something switched up, we may have to make some overhauls of a few of the functions. And what we mean by that is, like, if we're talking a phone, if you have this big chat icon on a little 5-inch screen, all of a sudden they can't see anything else, things like that. Making sure that the container space and the padding is correct. Pretty standard changes that we can make. But yeah, definitely during that content phase where you'll be working with someone much smarter than me at our company, they'll help you out with deciding the best route to go so that we have a good direction. And also that prototype will help a lot of, we can show you a few examples of prototypes before we actually go in and build it. And for the level of website that you guys are doing, that does add additional costs, which is why it's not a $1,000 website, but it also helps with everyone making a general consensus and making good decisions that don't come to bite you in 2 years. And all of a sudden now we need a whole new website.
And then I'm not sure if you're the one who does the design or not, but I know with the CVB, the Convention and Visitors Bureau website, there had been some concerns on the back end functionality, like it was running slow. Some of the add-ons weren't working quite right. I wasn't sure if you could say anything about that, if there's concerns that could happen again with the development of the site.
Right. So on that specific website, I've had quite a few conversations about that one. We do know there were some unfortunate circumstances that happened while we were building that, and that being taken into account for some of the communication that happened. I think hopefully we could, with everyone coming together, make sure that the functionality is decided, like you said beforehand, of making sure that all that design fits together. As far as the speed goes, we ended up switching a lot of the servers to make sure that it could handle such a robust website that has a lot of moving parts to it, because a lot of it was custom coded. So we did test out a few different options, and we ended up improving the speed. And actually, if you go to Google and you go to the common web standards and run it through, we rate in the green for that. So we continue to make updates to it, but also with custom coded websites, which your guys's would not be probably 100% custom coded. We would use a lot of existing plugins and such, but making sure that those integrate together 100% while staying on budget. That was some of the issues with that one in specific. A lot of those problems have been worked out though I know I sat down with the new director and I also extended beyond what we currently did because of some of the circumstances that happened with that. We extended for free any changes that you want because it was a new director and I know it was sudden, everything like that. And so we're willing to work with people to make sure that it's good. And any changes that were done, we also offered a little bit down for some of the complications that happen. So we try to be an upright firm. If something does go a little bit wrong, we're still there to answer the questions, and also we make it right, whether that be giving more service or giving a little bit of a discount for any hassles. But that one in specific, compared to our hundreds of other successes, I think outweighs it if you look at our track record.
Thanks.
Yep. Skip, Matt?
No, go ahead.
Just real quick, I wanted to clarify something you said there. Councilman Rowe asked about, say we have, updates or news releases, council videos, for example. Those change every 2 weeks. Did you say we would have with permissions that you would grant to certain people, would we be able to change those things? Because news releases come up, basically every single day, and we'd have to change out or add a new one. Is that something we would have to send? Again, I know it's a repetitious question, but would we send that to you to do and that would take more time, or do we have the ability here to have a staff member do that who has that permission?
Yep. So you have the ability to do that yourself. Okay. News stories especially are good. A lot of times also we can create a module if you're talking like a YouTube video, such as what's going on right now, to create something that automatically populates so that somebody doesn't actually have to go in and click if we know where it's coming from. For example, if you had a Facebook feed that you wanted to go on, you don't have to go and copy every Facebook feed and put it into your website. There are tools that exist, and we try not to recreate the wheel. We'll present you with a few options so that we can bring down the amount of changes that you have to go in and actually do. But yeah, you have full functionality to do, frankly, whatever you want within the site. During our training session at the very end, once we do launch and train whoever's going to be going into it, we do highlight a few areas where we say, hey, if you're going to start doing this, like totally change the header and this padding and everything like that, you might want to call us. But simple things like news posts, yep, you go in whenever you want, time and day, and you can make those edits for free just by yourself.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I had just a couple of questions, and there are follow-up questions,
okay.
Mitch. Both of these relate to questions that have been asked previously. The first one I'll pick up on was asked by Councilman Dalby. And the second one, I want to go back to a question and comment that Councilman Rowe made. The very first one, though, if we could go back to this, again, the page that has the website options, and there's 13 of them, and I just want to be clear on this one, make sure my understanding is clear. When we look at those options that are listed to us, I'm assuming then there is a cost then associated with these options. I don't think they're duplicative from what I see, so one could add these. So if we add them, I don't know what the cost would be, but I'm assuming if we're going to add these aren't free.
Correct. So we oftentimes will find solutions that don't cost extra money. That's obviously our goal, because then it has to go through approvals, everything like that. But for example, and that's a good way to point out, and I would asterisk the payments, and I did put optional on that. The payments, there are things that I personally, the Hill Productions won't charge you for, but to set up a merchant account with your bank, I don't know what the bank charges for that. Some people it's free, some people it's $150. Also, credit card transactions. How much does credit card transactions cost? Depends what vendor you go through. So our goal would be to be transparent during that process and show you a few options similar to what you're doing with the current website, where you're listening to a few different vendors, and be able to implement those things. Other than that, based upon what I'm seeing here, unless you wanted it to be 100% custom, which you don't, based upon our conversations that we've had, everything else on this page, and I want to, before I say that, make sure I read through it, is included with no additional fees. Okay. So that I do want to make that clear, that these options you can choose to do and you cannot. I put this up here to kind of spark some ideas of where you can take your current site. There's just a bunch of information right now, and we can really highlight a lot of those things. So yeah, I would make a revision to payments and put a little asterisk and say, I can't control other people's fees, but Hill Productions will not charge you more for those services.
Go ahead, Mayor.
So if I want to buy a dog license and I want to use my MasterCard to do that, payment option would be the platform or the add-on that you would put into our website?
Yes, so I can't control the MasterCard fees on that, but we would probably find a portal that works with your current system. So the thing is you're going to start getting somewhat into the IT land where we would have to know how to connect their account with what's on your guys' records. So that sort of system, there are systems out there that we would present to you. If you want it to be as simple as just plugging in how much it costs and putting your name and having it be a very just to the point, take the payment, something like that. Frankly, the only cost you're going to have is the payment processing. So I hope that makes that part of it clear.
And then I'm sorry, just one other follow-up question. And again, this relates to the discussion we had just a little while ago about the making the changes or augmentations to that. And I will just tell you, one of the firms that we've been dealing with so far, one of the hesitations of staff anyway to move on this is the fact that they would charge for, quite frankly, changes and augmentations. In addition to that, it would also have to be done through their office. So where I'm going to this is I'm assuming somewhat of a variation, Mitch, and help me out on this one. Katie King, my administrative secretary, she handles right now our quite frankly, our Facebook page is probably our best platform anyway for communicating with the public, which is not optimal. The website will give us that ability to do that more direct. So I say all that to ask the question, and there may be variations on this one. And that is when changes or augmentations need to be made. And they could be as simple as there is a date that is listed incorrectly or something such as that on something that is forwarded to us. That's a fairly easy one she could probably be able to do. The others may take a little bit more time. Such as an example, there's discussion about well, what is it? In 2019, the Babe Ruth World Series, it appears that's going down. That would be another one that I would assume we could probably do on our own. But you made mention of the fact that there's some that we could do and then some that Hill Productions could do. If you can, maybe give an example of what the difference would be and what, if any, cost is associated with those. Because I will tell you, our preference, simply on timing, our preference would be able to have staff make those changes so they can happen more expeditiously. But for those that are done through your designs, what costs, if any, are associated with those?
Great question. So first off, I think something that would help with that is me sending over after this, and if you can share it with everyone, would be an example of the back end and show you the user's manual so you can see how those changes are made. We're talking about this mysterious back end right now. It's a portal that you log into, and you made a very good point about it. Is I make it sound as though it's as easy as going on and making a post on Facebook. It's not that simple. It's not as simple as just typing out something and pressing post. You have to navigate to the correct page, and you have to know what page to go to. So you do need a cookbook there. I say cookbook, the user's manual there to get to that page. With that, if I give you an example of something that might be a change where you would call us versus just do it yourself. Let's say adding a page. If you were to add a new page that's a new blog that you don't want to link to your current news posting page. And this blog is just simply, and I'm throwing out a really bad idea here, but somebody wanting to post something really nice about the community, and they submit it and you post it every week. Okay, that's a bad example, but you want this brand new blog here. Frankly, you could probably figure out how to do that yourself, but that would be a situation where you would call us. Adding new pages, the big banner images, those are very popular right now at the top of websites where you can see a big graphic. Changing those, as long as you have the right size and the right pixels, pixels the correct resolution so it doesn't look fuzzy. That's something you can do yourself. But let's say we wanted to change the existing, container size to all of a sudden you want it to be the whole page. And so we're totally changing the design of the site. That would be something where you would call us. But when we're talking about posting a YouTube video, posting a news post, posting up a new PDF form that you want to be accessible to the community, those things are things that you can do all by yourself. And if you need the help and the support, we have clients that range from very, very techie people who know everything about it to people who probably can't even, if their computer shuts off, don't know how to turn it back on. So in those sorts of situations, if we're running into that with staff members, that may be additional training, like how to create a PDF. I can't necessarily teach you that side of it, but I'm sure you can help out with things like that. But uploading the PDF to your website, those are things that you can do by yourself.
And not to interrupt, that's just a question I had, and that is, I'm assuming there's a cost for that then, if the quite frankly, we're relying on your company then to, quite frankly, perfect some of these attachments or sites, or as you said, attachments. That was just my question and concern, whether or not there was a cost associated with it. And in addition to that, is there an amount of money then that we would quite frankly burn through? Let's say we did several of these in a month and then maybe they're gone.
What I would recommend if you foresee that happening is buying a maintenance package, because that would take care of everything.
That was what I was going to ask, the same thing. So you're saying the website is 9,000, and then if we do the optional website maintenance and the assurance, you said $149 a month.
148, I believe it. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Those are optional. There is not a cost to posting on your own website. It's your website, and it's just like your Facebook profile. You can post on it as much as you possibly want to. As long as you don't need to call and use our team's time, there is no cost involved. With that, you have 6 months of free maintenance. So during that 6 months, I recommend you use that as much as you possibly can with all the employees on staff. Okay. To get the most out of that. But yeah, that is where the cost comes in. And if you're concerned about that, we may work a deal where we extend that maintenance another 6 months. We do it in 6-month increments. And you may deem that, or frankly, I might contact you after 12 months then and say, you've only sent over 2 changes to us, which would have costed, $70, and you paid way too much, and we would work something out. And we can even create a custom plan for you if you wanted. If you just wanted it to be, you would pay something like $29 a month to make sure that if you needed me, we would be there and make those changes at a certain hourly rate. But let me answer the question fully though, is if you do not buy the maintenance package and you want something changed where you have to call us, the call is free, obviously, to get somebody on the line and make sure they can help you. But then they're going to tell you, we're going to start going into us actually making a change, which starts getting billed at $65 an hour. And we have a platform that counts those minutes, and you get billed at the end of the month. So you might want to allot a certain amount if you don't go with a website maintenance package.
All right, that makes sense. Thank you.
Other questions? Amanda, Edward, Joni, you use the web. Anybody else in our staff have any questions? Gene?
Mr. Mayor, one item that I want to point out to council, and I probably should have done this at the beginning, but obviously, Mitch, and again, we appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. We have 2 other proposals. Once we hear those 2 other proposals, I think it would be wise then for staff to put together a chart or just a fact sheet that lists not only the options with the 3 entities, but also the costs that would be associated with it, so they could somewhat compare and contrast. Again, my preference would be to move on this in February. It's a council decision, so I want as much input from council as possible, and like that staff have some exposure to this as well. I don't really have anything else, Mayor. Just wanted to point that out to let the council know that when we're finished with these, I'll put together a draft set of notes, probably have Edward look over those as well when we get that 3rd and final one in, so council can look at it. There obviously would be the price points as well.
I guess. I think one thing before we make a decision, after hearing all of them, I think making sure that we know what we want to see on the website and what the staff wants to see, really plays a role. Knowing what add-ons or what type of things we actually want to see. I know that if we use Till Productions, they'd kind of work us through what we want to see, but I think we need to know some of that beforehand so that we know maybe what's the best fit based on what they can offer.
Right.
So.
And that is something, if you don't mind me chiming in there, as far as the vision for the website goes, there's different personalities and different ways that boards work. And the way you can work with us is that there is no limit to the amount of people who can be copied on all of these messages, and we can run it by. If it does get to be a lot of it is done through email correspondence, but it might sound like you have a specific idea of what you want that to look like. And if whoever wants to be included in on that process, obviously that's based upon leadership and how you want to get the process done. But we don't mind working with a lot of different parties. The last little pitch I do want to throw in there is working with Hill Productions and Media Group. Is although we're local, I don't want you to think that we're not a reputable firm that can handle it. We have 12 employees, so we're not just a one-stop shop. A lot of web design firms, they work in coffee shops, and that's not to knock on them. That's totally fine, but it's a one guy or maybe two people who work in two different coffee shops. We have an office. We all come together, so you have a firm that stands behind it. At the end of the day, you can actually make a call and get a response. And I hate having to say that, but unfortunately, based upon the industry that I'm in and some of the nightmares that I've had calls from current clients who sign contracts with firms like that, I want to save you from that headache and know that you'll be taken care of. So that's my last little thing.
Mr. Mayor, I promise one last question on this one, and this comes up. I don't know whether we covered this with you or not, Mitch, but one of them is a pretty simple one, but a register a complaint or concern. Obviously, that's something that it's probably missing from our current website, where if someone sees something in the community they don't like, right now we're picking those off Facebook. If someone says, there's a sewer manhole that is ajar, there's a dead animal or something such as that, would we have the ability, quite frankly, this probably shouldn't be anything terribly complicated, but to have a complaint concern page or a click on or something they would do? Because what my preference would be, those would go to Katie King, my administrative assistant, and then I would address it, say, within a given period of time. Would that be an option that we would have?
Short answer is yes. Long answer is if you want a way to deal with those complaints, so like selecting which department, make sure it gets to someone, make sure they read it, all those things. There are tools out there that do that, but the way that you're explaining it is a very, very simple way. Either way is fine with us, and we can build it out either way. But it can be as simple as a web form where they say what their complaint is. It goes to a few email addresses, and then based upon that, I'd work with IT to know how technology-wise it goes to the right people and gets handled.
Mayor, just one of that would certainly be my preference, because I'm sure some of the council members or people in the audience have seen that. It's not uncommon. If you go to certain cities of a certain size, perhaps, and you have a complaint then about a power outage, you have to go through the bureaucratic blender to find out which department it is that you're supposed to ask and hope that it gets posted. I would rather they just come to one person and then it's disseminated.
Yep.
That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other comments, questions? You've got this, and you've got Mitch's name and phone number, so we'll have the other presentations and be thinking about it. And thank you very much. We appreciate the information. Good
Thank you
job.
for your time, guys.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to address any issue that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, then I would entertain a motion. Is there any other business from council? Anything you want to bring up? Okay. Then I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Thank you.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Berg?
Yes.
Meeting's adjourned at 6:27.